Most new businesses fail. You already know that. As a matter of fact, it's a data point that gets thrown in our face all the time, especially if you're new. If you're just about to start a business, all of the naysayers and the distractors are going to come to you and be like, most new businesses fail. And they're right. As a matter of fact, I think failure needs to be optimized for. Failure needs to be something that we reach towards, not that we avoid. So that caveat aside, here's the thing that pisses me off about people coming to you and saying, most new businesses fail. They don't talk about why. And there's immense amount of data available on this very topic. The number one reason that businesses fail, to the tune of 82% of the time, is cash flow issues. Once you know that, that's a failure point that can be optimized for. My name's Kasim. I've built 6 multi-million-dollar businesses. I've had 2 successful exits, 1 for 8 figures. I've generated a $10,000,000 net worth, and my goal in life is to help you achieve 3x freedom. That's financial freedom, freedom of dimension, and freedom of purpose. Here's what's really interesting. I'm a liquid multimillionaire. What I mean by that is I actually have millions of dollars in the bank. I don't have it stashed away in CDs or funds or real estate or whatever. I have the money. And every business I start, I still bootstrap. Without a single exception. I have yet to take a business and just pour a bunch of money into it and hope and pray that it works, because the bootstrapping methodology is the only way that I know to make a business work. Now, maybe that's because I'm a dummy and there's a bunch of Goldman Sachs, Harvard grads that are just way smarter than me, and I'm sure that's true, and you can go find their YouTube channel. But what I'd like to show you is the bootstrapping method of starting and building a business so you can optimize for the number one fail point in every new business, which is cash flow issues. I'll show you exactly what I mean. So what you're looking at here is a visual representation of cash flow as I see it, okay? And I'm a dummy that never went to college and graduated from public school in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So this is the best that I could do. The x-axis represents time. So each one of these little tickers is going to be a month: January, February, March, April, etc. The y-axis represents money. Anything below 0 is negative. This is what we're spending. Anything above 0 is positive. This is what we're making. Now, here's what people generally do when they start a business. And what I'd like to do actually is, I don't want a sock puppet argument. So let me set us up for success in the example that I'm about to provide. Let's say that you and I work together at a CPA firm. And I'm going to choose that because it's just a really basic type of business that everybody understands. We've all had a CPA. So you and I are CPAs. We work together at a great big CPA firm. And we've been there a long time. We know what we're doing. We're great at what we do. All of our customers love us. And we decide, you know what? It's time for us to strike out on our own. We need to start our own CPA firm because we want to be our own boss. There are things that we want to do and try. We know that, we're going to make improvements. We want the freedom, the flexibility, make more money, et cetera, all this stuff. Now, this is, if you really think about it, this is, in as much as a new business could be, this is built to succeed, because we're just going to take the thing that we're already doing and we've been doing our entire professional lives, and we're going to do it for ourselves. So we're set up for success, and that's actually part of the problem. Here's what people do. When they start a business, they build a vehicle to traverse known territory. So we work at a CPA firm that's it's up, it's running, there's a roof, lights are on, phone rings, customers pay us money. It's a vehicle that is traversing known territory. And we look at that vehicle and we think, well, I want that. So I'm going to go rebuild that. And then I will be able to traverse known territory. And this is the issue, is when you start a new business, even if it's the exact same business as where you just came from as an employee, you are still in unknown territory, right? This business has figured out a lot of things. It's figured out its pipeline from a customer acquisition perspective, which is huge. It's figured out its branding, its messaging, its pricing, its infrastructure. And there's a lot of things that, even employees at the very, 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 very top don't necessarily see. And yet, when people start a business, they start a business as a vehicle to traverse known territory, which actually makes sense, right? Like logically, you're like, all right, I want to be able to go from A to B, and I'm going to need a vehicle that can do that thing. And so I'm going to go build that vehicle. Here's what this looks like, more practically speaking. You and I work at a CPA firm. We're going to start our own business. We're striking out our own. God bless us. We're going to have a ton of fun doing it. And in order to do that, we need to build our firm, right? So this is month 1 in business. Month 1 in business, we need an office. Obviously, because we just came from an office, and a modest office is going to be $2,500 a month. And then we're going to need an assistant because the work that we do is very high level, and there's a lot of grunt work and data entry and stuff that's really beneath our pay grade. And so a good part-time assistant in that world is going to be $5,000 a month. So we're at $7,500 a month. And then, of course, there's the infrastructure necessary to doing our job. So there's, data repositories that we're used to accessing, software applications that we're going to need, obviously, the infrastructure to doing business, the Google single workspace, user accounts. Let's call that $2,500 all in, right? And that's everything that could be ancillary expenses. Just so I'm not trying to sock puppet this argument. Now, you and I, we're six-figure employees. We each make 120 grand a year working at the CPA firm. However, we really believe in this. We believe in ourselves. So we're willing to take a pay cut. I'm going to take $5 grand a month. You're going to take $5 grand a month. So now we've got, 10 grand a month. So we're at a 20K monthly burn. And there were some things that we really didn't anticipate on month one, right? We needed to file for the LLC, which means we needed an operating agreement. Neither of us have ever done that before. So we hired an attorney to help us get that done. We had to go get, our domain, our logo, our website built, business cards printed, all the stuff that new business owners actually really get a very big kick out of. So let's say that where we have a 20K a month recurring burn, we spent another 10K on month one, just getting everything done. However, this is a one-off expense, and so both of us agreed, you know what, this is worth it, let's do it. Now, we have a nest egg, right? We've been six-figure employees for the last decade, and so we've got some money set aside. So I'm going to take 50 grand, and you're going to take 50 grand, and we're going to throw our collective $100,000 into the kitty in order to run this business. So we currently have, let's just say, we have 100K of runway, right? We have $100,000 in runway, and we know what we're doing, and we're good at what we do. So month one, we spent building our business, getting the website done, getting the operating agreement done, getting the office all purdy, putting us in finding and hiring this assistant, putting us in a position to where we can really hang out our shingle. Day one of month two, what do? We start marketing. It's time to go get customers. And we know that's step one. However, what a lot of new businesses don't realize is how long it's going to take to get their first customer, even if they're tenured professionals in that endeavor, because it's not about how good they are. It's about all the things on the periphery that you don't necessarily consider. So, how good is your website? Does it convert? How good is your messaging? How good is your pricing? Is your agreement palatable? And do you have all your ducks in a row in that way? If you don't know who I am, I built the number one ranked Google Ads agency in the world. I sold it 2 years ago. When I sold it, we had $100 million in ad spend under management. Over 200 active clients at the time. Thousands of clients had gone through my agency over the 15 years that I owned it. Here's why I bring this up. Because I know what lead generation looks like. I wouldn't take a client if they didn't agree that 90 days was the minimum time required to begin seeing signs of life. So if you started advertising today, on day 91, you could expect to see signs of life, meaning signs of a positive impact to your advertising. And incidentally, that's actually a pretty aggressive schedule, especially if you're in a competitive space. The thing about being a tenured professional in a space that's already proven is you're also in a space that already has proven competitors. And so here we are, month two, we start advertising. And we have our 20K burn, but it's going to take 90 days. And so we're going to get through month two, month three, and month four. So here's the 90-day, investment that we've made in the future of our business. Month five, something really amazing happens. We get our very first customer. And we get our first customer at, let's say that, again, so I can steel man this argument, let's say that it's recurring revenue. And most businesses don't necessarily have a recurring revenue component to them. This one does, though, which makes us even more optimistic about the future of this business. We sign a client for $2,500 a month. $2,500 a month gets them the bookkeeping, the financial analysis, and the tax prep, let's say, just to make this business model simple. However, we're still burning our $20,000 a month. And now I think is the perfect visual articulation of the quintessential cash flow problem. And I'll show you what I mean. Let's say that we don't invest any more money in advertising, which, by the way, if you really look at the numbers here, I didn't factor that expenditure in. But let's pretend that the advertising expense that we were investing was included in the $2,500 ancillary that I set aside, and that it's actually enough to begin yielding customers, which incidentally, I don't think that it is. But we'll pretend that for just a moment. Let's say that all of our costs stay the same. We don't have to invest any more amount of money. We're going to burn $20K a month every month all through the end of the year. Now, let's say that our marketing is able to yield one new customer a month, and let's assume that our retention is 100%, which, by the way, I think if you've ever been in business for yourself, is very, very, very generous, right? So here's what we're doing. We've gone from $2,500 a month to $5,000 a month to $7,500 a month to $10,000 a month to $12,500 to $15,000 to $7,500 to 20 grand. So God bless us. Here we are at the very end. The last month, month 12, is effectively break even. What does this mean? This means that we are covering all of our expenses with what it is that we're making. Now, we're not really making any money, right? You and I are still taking 50% of what we were used to making, but at least the business isn't burning money. However, there's a problem. And ironically, given that we're a CPA firm, the problem is math. You can already see where the math problem exists, right? So what we did was we spent $20,000 a month for 12 months for $240,000 plus $10,000 at the very front for the initial investment. So our outlay was $250,000. Now, we had $100,000 to invest. However, we did make some money. And if you were to go through and you were to add all this up, $2,500 plus $5,000 plus $7,500 plus $12,500, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you would get $90K. And we had the $100,000 that we initially invested. So we had a $190,000 runway, which means there's a $60,000 shortfall. And this is the interesting point, is if you look at our graph, this is actually not an adequate visual articulation of what this business would really look like. Why? Because we were out of money. Here's 20, 40, 60, 80, 90. We were out of money halfway through month one, right? We ran out of money the day we signed our very first client. That's when we went into the negative. So we never would have made it beyond this point without us first pouring more of our money into the business, which, by the way, is what people do. They build the business and they feel like they're stopping 3 feet from gold. They run out of their initial investment. And so maybe they have, a nest egg that they cash in and they pour that into the business, and then they borrow from friends and family, and then they run up their credit cards, and then they run out of money. And what's really interesting too about this visual articulation, I hope you'll agree that I've actually been really friendly. Like, we've had 100% retention rate this entire time. We've been able to close clients right away, which is rather unusual. Our costs have not grown at all. I didn't even really factor for marketing. Like, this is absolute best case scenario. And yet, in the absolute best case scenario, we run out of money before we even really begin acquiring customers. And the issue with that isn't the acquisition strategy. It's not go get customers faster or start marketing sooner, right? Because if you started marketing sooner, you'd be burning through marketing spend sooner. The real issue is, it's this bottom line. No pun intended. It's the amount of money that we're spending. This is why I will only ever bootstrap a business. Because every business that you build, I don't care how good you are at the endeavor. If you're going to start a bakery and you're the best baker in the whole wide world, fantastic. A bakery actually has very, 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 very little to do with baking. Once you have a quality product, which, by the way, you can outsource, right? You can hire out, you can buy somebody else's baked goods. Once you have a quality product, which is the easiest thing to control for, everything else is what that business is about. So it's about marketing, acquisition, onboarding, intake, delivery, retention, ascension, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And those are all the things that we're learning in whatever this timeline is. And that's the other thing that's really interesting is, 1 year, I think is very, very, very friendly to think that a business would begin breaking even at 1 year. And I don't care what these numbers are, by the way. This is the flawed model. It's this huge cash outlay for what we know is going to be a slow and steady increase in customers. So what do? What does real bootstrapping look like? I'm so glad you asked. Allow me to show you. You and I just started our business. We're phenomenal CPAs. What do? Well, month one, we spend nothing. We spend no money. This is what it means to bootstrap a business. We don't go off and build the big fancy website. We do, whatever free Wix one page is allowed, or the GoDaddy landing page that comes with the $12 domain. We don't hire that assistant to help us with the grunt work. We don't go get the expensive attorney to build our operating agreement for the LLC filing. Everything that we do is absolute bare minimum, bare bones, bare nothing. At most, maybe we spend $1,000, right? We spend $1,000 filing the LLC, which you can do for, I think, $250, depending on what state you're in. Getting the domain name, putting a one-page website up. We both work from home. We use our cell phones. We have, basic infrastructure. We go and get the G Suite for $20 a month, but we spend no money. And then what do? We work towards cracking the code on customer acquisition. Now, we're not taking any money. There's something really interesting here. Neither of us, you'll notice in the first example that I offered, the biggest cost was what? It was our salaries, right? What do we not have here? We're not factoring in salaries. This is one of the things that's really interesting. Instead of us each taking 50 grand a piece and throwing it into the kitty and then immediately drawing upon it, which by the way is the way that employees think. Employees think that a business is there to give them a job. That's not the case at all. The business is there to create profit. Within the profit creation mechanism, you might develop jobs for sure, but the money that you make from the business comes after all jobs have been fulfilled upon. That means that we are not drawing down on this business. That's one of the biggest, most important parts of bootstrapping a business is you need to be personally and financially solvent in perpetuity, to be frank, for as long as it will take for you to crack the code on this business. Now, one of you might say, I can't do that. Guess what? You don't get to play this game. Sorry. And I have a video on money mindset, by the way, that I'd really encourage you to watch if you just got discouraged, because you can set yourself up to play this game. You can set yourself up so that you narrow your life down so that you burn the absolute minimum amount of money that you can possibly burn. And that, by the way, means sacrifice. It means living in your parents' basement and sacking your lunch, right? Like do whatever it is you can do to bring your costs, your personal costs, all the way down to as close to zero as is feasible. And then the other thing that you do, by the way, which is not conventional wisdom, and I don't know why, is you continue to do whatever it is that you're doing that helps you satiate your financial needs while you build your business. So don't quit your job, don't burn the boats, don't walk away. In this particular instance, if we're working at the CPA firm, we work at the CPA firm while we're building our own business, while we're trying to generate customers and figure out what's going on. And if the firm doesn't allow that, by the way, I've always taken such umbrage with employers that don't allow their employees to freelance, because that makes you effectively some form of slave labor. They don't own your free time. They own the time that they pay for sure. And you shouldn't go after their clients or use their vendors or solicit their employees. I'm not telling you to do anything unethical, but anything outside of that, that's your time. I believe that very, very strongly. I'd love, if somebody disagrees with me and you have a strong reason why, I'd love you to hit me in the comments. I think that could be a very, hopefully respectful discussion. Don't quit your job. Don't stop the cash flow, because you have no idea how long you're going to be in this zone. So, let's say we have our little teeny tiny $1,000 a month burn. So you have your financial needs satiated for as long as it will take you in order to crack the code on this business model. Now, here's what's really interesting is look at how intimidating this looks, right? Just all that red when compared to this. This is real bootstrapping. This is bootstrapping because you could run this business quite literally forever. We're spending $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month. Let's say that we tap out at $2,500 a month. Between the two of us, that's $1,250 that we're putting into the kitty, and we're six-figure employees. We could run this, what is effectively a side hustle, forever, for as long as we want. Now, along the way, something magic's going to happen. And it doesn't matter where it happens, by the way. This is what's brilliant about the bootstrap model, is the bootstrap model is very static in terms of the amount of money that we're spending. But along the way, let's say that we actually really do get our very first client. We get our first $2,500 a month client, and we have a $2,500 a month expenditure. So now what? We're effectively break even in month 9. And what's really cool about that is, assuming the same model, I hope you'll agree that I'm not being more forgiving of this model than the other one. We got our $2,500 a month client month 9, and we figured out our customer acquisition strategy. And now month 10, we get another one. We're at $5,000 a month. Our expenditures are still at $2,500. What does this allow us to do? That means that in the month that follows, we invest another $2,500 into our business. We're making $5,000 a month, which means we can spend $5,000 a month. And what does that do? That means that, we're already on track to acquire one new customer a month, and we're retaining the customers that we have. But because we invested another $2,500 this month, that puts us in a position of actually increasing our customer acquisition, let's say, or improving our outreach or investing more in marketing. And the growth trajectory of our customers should increase in direct proportion. And as this increases, you notice that we made $10,000 this month than we did the month prior. That means that we can actually invest that $10,000 back into the business. Now, I call this staying in front of the wave, because you'll notice that the growth trajectory precedes the expenditure trajectory, right? I'm making money before I'm spending that money. If I make $5,000 this month, that puts me in a position to spend $5,000 next month, which means the month that follows, I'm going to make more. And what's really nice about bootstrapping, incidentally, is I'm only investing in the things that I've already proven work. As opposed to our model up here, where we started with spray and pray from the very beginning, I'm going to focus on the one thing that moves the needle in this particular business. And for new businesses, it's usually customer acquisition. And I'm going to experiment and experiment and experiment and experiment, experiment and experiment and experiment and experiment. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, whatever it is I did here, it yields results. Well, by golly, let's do that again. And let's do it again. And you know what? We made a little bit of money and we have some money to invest. Let's double up on that strategy. And you're going to see that the results are, I don't think I've done a good job at visually articulating the benefit to this staying ahead of the wave, because when you are investing, unlike in the prior model, you're actually investing in the things that you know work. But this puts you in a position to really begin to see the business trajectory, and you're only ever investing funds that you already have to invest. And so you're staying ahead of the wave. And if you want to cascade this out for yourself, you can see what this looks like, right? Now, here's what's really cool. And this is why I really like this model. Is because let's say something goes horribly and catastrophically wrong, which, by the way, will absolutely happen. So the Fed comes out and cuts rates, or there's a legislation change, or whatever. Something happens that causes you to lose a client or atrophy, or you're not able to grow the way that you're able to grow. What does this mean? Let's say I lost this client this month. Well, that means the month that follows, I get to do what? I get to decrease my expenditure in direct proportion to my losses. Right? This is what's really cool about staying in front of the wave, is I could actually get wiped out this entire month. And that just means that the month that follows, because I'm staying ahead of the wave, I wipe out all my costs of goods. I bring down to close to literal zero. This is what it means to bootstrap a business. You build a business from zero using as minimal an expenditure as is possible. And this paradigm works in every business model, incidentally. I don't care if there's infrastructure required. So, let's say that you and I wanted to start a septic company together. Like the bootstrapping model that I showed you is really good for something like a CPA firm where you can work from home and there's not a bunch of infrastructure. But if we wanted to start a septic company, a septic truck, a good one, is $250,000. You can build this business without that $250,000 outlay. The easy button would be renting or leasing, which would decrease the expenditure really significantly. What I'd encourage you to do, though, is I'd encourage you to find a provider that you can white label or resell. Why? Because in the beginning, when you're bootstrapping the business, it's not about achieving immediate profitability. As a matter of fact, if you're reselling for exactly zero, meaning, you sell the service for $100 and you have to pay $100, that's okay. Because you're learning customer acquisition, you're learning customer service, you're learning attention, you're learning the nomenclature, you're learning pricing. What will people pay? What will they not pay? So the fulfillment in the very beginning, it's okay to break even. As a matter of fact, I'd recommend it. I'd recommend finding the best fulfillment house for whatever it is that you plan on selling and just reselling their services for a while. It stops you from having to build any infrastructure and puts you in a position to just learning the business as you grow the business in the sequence that you would need to learn in order for that business to be a well-oiled machine, or as I like to call it, an optimized wheel. And I have a whole video on the business wheel. If you have any interest, we'll link to it here. So I hope this is helpful. I really strongly believe in bootstrapping businesses. I think that it keeps you from spending on things that you shouldn't be spending on. It helps put you in the right frame of mind. And maybe most importantly, it forces you to actually do the work that needs to be done. If you're building a brand new business and somebody needs to be cold calling prospects, you need to be cold calling prospects. Don't think that you're above that, because you're not. And what will happen if you don't put yourself in a position of doing that grunt work is you're not going to have the finger to the pulse that would be necessary in order to really identify what's working and what's not working. When you outsource stuff like that, you might feel like it's boiler room work that's just beneath your pay grade, when in reality, that's the stuff that business owners and entrepreneurs need to do. They need to be on the front lines, because when you're the one doing the cold calling, you start to realize like, oh gosh, this messaging isn't working, or this offer really resonates, or people are I'm calling them about this problem, but they're actually having this other problem over here. I need to pivot, which is, reminiscent of the corridor principle, which I talk about all the time and have some videos on. All that to say, you don't need to invest in most businesses. As a matter of fact, I'd say the majority of businesses that people would look at as startup opportunities, you can run with this paradigm, with this bootstrap paradigm. And you can put yourself in a position where you learn how to build a vehicle that will really function without going all in and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and burning through your savings, and then getting to a position where you have cash flow issues, which, again, to repeat, 82% of all business failures are cash flow issues. This is how you avoid those cash flow issues. I hope this is helpful. If it was, and you want to help me, the thing that I would ask of you is to share. If this video was helpful to you in any way, and you think it would be helpful to other people, you can like, comment, subscribe. That's all great, but that's between you and I. That's just us building a relationship. If you really want to help me, the thing to do would be to share this video with other people and let them know why you're sharing. Like, give them context, let them know why they should watch it too. I want to be YouTube famous, and it would be of great help to me if anybody who watched this and got value out of it was willing to share it to whatever social channel resonates with them. Anyway, hopefully that's not too much like digital panhandling. I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll see you in the next one.